Oh my god, it's finally here! Hey guys, Trive here, back again with an absolute banger. If you don't know, recently the Joe Yabuki update finally got confirmed for this week, and I, as well as many other content creators, got early access to it. I know I haven't uploaded in like a month, so I'm going to treat you guys with exactly what you're looking for, that being a tier list for the Joe Yabuki style. Analyzing all the strengths and weaknesses it has a lot of strengths and weaknesses. This style is probably the most complicated ability we've gotten so far. Way more complicated than Shotgun, there's way too much going for it, but despite that fact, its ranking may surprise you. On that note though, make sure to like, subscribe, and join the Discord down below if you like the video, and of course, massive shout out to the 6 members of the Trive channel. Cool Guy Flunker, Arlaws, Mercenary, Juiced Muffin, Valerie, and Audrix. Now going into this, I am aware that you're probably thinking, with all the hype surrounding the Joe Yabuki style, as well as all the leaks that have come out, this style is probably broken, probably really strong, and on release is going to dominate the meta. I'm going to ease your mind by saying this, no, it's not that strong whatsoever, not even close. In fact, it's probably the 3rd worst style in this game, only better than the likes of Freedom and Shotgun. Let me explain. On the surface, this style seems to have a lot going for it from the leaks and the hype as a whole. You know, 70% ultimate you can gain access to, the insane damage and burn, the extra HP regen. There's also the fact that you don't take damage in PDs, in the sense that you don't take true damage, you can heal it all back. All pretty good strengths that you get access to in burn, and even in base, like the ultimate, people have already seen, you can gain it back very quickly. You can use like 2 or 3 ultimates per round if you play optimally. It's genuinely crazy. But if you're in the know, if you try the style out yourself, you're going to understand when I say this style is the exact embodiment of the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. Let me explain. In the base mode, Joe Yabuki has this stat spread. It has Shotgun M1 damage, Shotgun M2 damage, no buffed counter damage on its M1s. It has buffed counter damage on its M2, similar to the likes of Counter, maybe Bullets. Well, no, not Bullets, sorry, Chronos. That's the stat spread. When it comes to its health, it only has 70% health, but this is counteracted by 4 stocks, or having 4 stocks. The issue is, when you multiply 70% by 4, you get 208%. This is 20% less than the rest of the cast, barring Chronos and Freedom, which means it has a 20% HP nerf, which is almost as bad as Freedom, and it's worse than Chronos. This is one of many examples of what I was talking about when it comes to not judging a book by its cover. 4 stock seems broken, but 70% health is 70% health. This is a net nerf, and it really hurts the style in the long run. I'll get into that very shortly, because a couple other weaknesses in base I want to cover later, because they're the reason I think this style is genuinely just not that good. Anyway, when it comes to its ultimate, on success, it does 25% damage to your opponent and 10% self damage. On fail, it does the reverse, 10% to your opponent, 25% to you. The quick time event is very easy. You have no reason to fail it unless you don't know how the ult works, or you're pretty much falling asleep. It's very easy to react to, and that pretty much summarizes the base mode. In burn, this style gets cranked up to 11. It has buff damage, like really buff damage. Its M1 damage is the same as Slugger, but you have more stamina, so you do even more damage. Your M2 damage is the same as Smash. Your M1 speed is as fast as like Focus Chronos, while your M2 speed is intended, I think, to be slightly faster than Wolf, but has negative end lag, so you can just spam it back to back. I know this will be changed, there's no way it won't, because there's definitely a bug. It definitely seemed like it had no end lag whatsoever. Might be wrong though, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it'll be nerfed. Along with that, perfect dodges don't do anti-heal damage, so if your opponent perfect dodges you, you can't do true damage. They can heal all back, but this doesn't really matter that much when you consider one of its nerfs. Anyway, as increased counter damage overall, I believe. It has no backdash or block though, so that's a massive nerf. It has increased HP regen, but it also drains HP over time. This includes regenerable HP, and it's what I meant when I said PD's not doing anti-heal doesn't matter that much. The HP drain is actually pretty fast too, and it's a genuinely crazy nerf that makes burn pretty useless in a lot of cases, because it's very easy to avoid damage and refrain from taking risks, especially since you can block after every single dodge in the game, which is why PD fishing is so strong. That's actually part of why this style is so, like, not that great. It doesn't do well when PD fishing, and PD fishing is pretty much the meta, because you can block after every failed dodge, you can account for every feint, and PD fishing does the most damage in any given interaction, which I'll say for another video later on. But on that note, along with with the HP being drained over time, your opponent can't backdash after a few seconds, which kind of equalizes the nerf that you got, but they can still block. When you actually proc the burn mode, you have hyper armor for 2 seconds, allowing you to get free counters. So you can pop it, do an M2, get a free counter M2 with smash damage. Absolutely crazy. And that pretty much summarizes the style as a whole, is what I would like to say. But as I mentioned before, there are a few other hijinks with the style that kind of just break it completely. If this style was left as is, with what I've said, it'd be a solid 80, maybe A+. Maybe if I'm completely wrong when it comes to how strong burn is, maybe even S. But the one thing I neglected to mention, and the reason why I think this style is B+, is that it takes flat damage against all ultimates. What this means essentially is, if your ult does 50%, it instead does 50. That's 50 damage out of 70, which means that almost every single style in this game can do Iron Fist level ult damage to Joe Yabuki whenever you land an ultimate. When you consider the fact that Joe Yabuki can't block in burn, that is genuinely insane, because there's just gonna be some cases where you will die after like 3 M2s and lose your entire stock as Joe. If you don't pay attention and pop fade immediately to transition back to your base on reaction, or if you just slack off for like a second, you just lose a stock in like a few seconds flat, and I'm not exaggerating. But if you can do 70% of your opponent's health if they're using Joe with only like the average style, the average ultimate, guess what happens when you use Iron Fist? You just perish. You just die. That's it. Iron Fist does 75% health with its ultimate. So that translates into 75 damage period to Joe Yabuki, which is a complete one-shot. And against Joe, I'm pretty sure Iron Fist can reliably use its ultimate twice. So you can pretty much take 2 stocks for free. Of course, I haven't tested this religiously since the full style isn't out yet. And I'm also pretty sure that they're going to change this, because this is kind of just style breaking. I think this is an over nerf. I might be wrong, who knows? But the bottom line is, when you consider the fact that it only has 70% health and it takes flat damage, and it's one mode that's supposed to equalize how bad it is in base, drains health over time, this style has not an issue of stats when it comes to its damage or anything, but it comes to the fact that any resource, any ability that you use requires using your health and using valuable resources that is literally killing you faster than your opponent could kill you. You can die, you can do damage to yourself more often than your opponent does damage to you, and you pretty much can't control it because you'll lose regardless. So what I can essentially imagine happening in any given Joe Yabuki fight is, if you're fighting like a Ruby player, they're barely gonna punch. They're gonna be PD fishing most of the time. That's gonna be the general meta, especially in ranked. So what's going to happen is, you'll pretty much never get counters, you'll never get access to burn. But even if you do, by the time you get to it, you'll be losing all your health, getting shredded off one mistake because you have 70% health. And even if you land ultimates, you get burn, you shred your opponent, they can just like take 2 or 3 stocks for free pretty much immediately within like a few seconds of gaining that stock in the first place. For example, in the first stock, your opponent knocks you down as Joe Yabuki, and they're like a stock behind. What they can do is they can land like 2, maybe 3 M2s, maybe land M1, then ult you and you lose your stock. And there's nothing you can do about it unless you're extremely lucky. This is a massive stat problem that Joe probably needs, because otherwise the style is going to be completely broken and a lot of people are not going to like that. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm not saying it being like this isn't a problem. I don't want it to be broken. I want it to be fun but hard to use, because when you do win with it, it's satisfying. It's very well designed and I applaud the balance team for it. But for the people expecting the style to be completely broken for them to abuse, that's not going to happen. And for the people who are worried that this style is going to break the meta, that's not going to happen either. Again, it depends on what they change, but I think all they're really going to change is the M2 in burn, because it is pretty broken because it's bugged, and probably the flat damage, but I don't think that might actually happen. It's probably needed so this style isn't really strong, like pretty much every other style that's been released so far, especially like the likes of Shotgun, for example, Wolf, the Slugger rework, etc. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. If you guys like the video, you know what to do. I mentioned it in the beginning of the video. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.